Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our speakers today are university students from Ukraine who have been living and surviving the tragedies that have been going on around them. Today, they are going to be sharing their thoughts, impressions, and feelings regarding what is going on in the war in Ukraine. We have Yaroslav Mazniuk, who was born and lives in Kremenchuk. He is on his 5th year of studies for a master's degree in translation studies at the Kremenchuk Mykhailo Ostrohradskyi National University. He is planning to become a translator and pursue his interests in Ukraine. Next, we have Nikoletta Miriavets. She was born in the Transcarpathian region, which is located in the west of Ukraine. Nika is studying in the Faculty of Journalism at the Franko National University in Lviv. Since the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, she has been actively involved in volunteering and citizen journalism. Finally, we have Karina Neshatayeva. She was born in the Cherkasy region, studies at the Faculty of Journalism at the Franko National University in Lviv. And Karina is working as a journalist at a radio station. Since the beginning of the war, she has become a volunteer and is helping refugees. Over to you, Yaroslav.
Today I'm going to speak about the quite significant topic, why surrendering Ukrainian territories will not stop the war. Since the beginning of Russian invasion, a large number of residents and politicians worldwide, especially from the West, believes that Ukraine must surrender part of its territories in order to make peace. Someone even suggested holding a legal referendum in those territories. Russian propaganda, as well as Russian money, still take control of the minds of people. There are also those who sincerely believe that Russia is protecting and saving someone by firing missiles at Ukrainian cities. Even if Ukraine were to surrender its territories, Russia would not stop its aggression. In fact, it would embolden Russia to continue its expansionist agenda, leading to further conquest and territory demands and conflicts in the region. We already know from Russian media and statements that it has claims for other lands such as Georgia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Kazakhstan, and so on. Almost every day, Russian media calls to bomb European cities. Thus, giving them the territory they want will encourage them to demand more. Russia will take into account their mistakes, build up a new military force, infiltrate more agents in other countries, and will start a new war. It is unknown to what extent they will stop. And so another issue rises. Allowing Russians to take the lands because they are shielded with nuclear weapon will completely break the global security system. Appeasing the aggressor by giving him what he wants will set a dangerous precedent for other nations facing similar territorial disputes. The number of nuclear weapons worldwide will be increased, as well as the probability of a nuclear war. A country with a nuclear weapon cannot be allowed to seize the territory of another country through force, without facing response from the world community. Russia is not invincible. all these years, Russia has been creating the image of a formidable country with an invincible army. It all turned out to be a lie. We see that it was all just a picture. The world is able to defeat Russia, and fear has always been one of its means of manipulation. Through threats of nuclear war, Russia tried to achieve its goals of occupying Ukraine, but we often see these threats not being fulfilled. This indicates the weakness of their position. We must take advantage of their weakness now. Our drones and scouts are working deep in the territory of Russia. The supply of new Western weapon systems increasing every month. The border with the accursed NATO has expanded. They cannot do anything about it. They have corrupt officials and a president who can only rob his own people. This is the perfect chance to overwhelm them, and at least here in the sovereign territory of Ukraine, save thousands of innocent lives. It is important to remember that the war in Ukraine is not just about territorial disputes. It is also about human rights violations and genocide of Ukrainian nation. Both sides are bogged down in the war of attrition right now. The question arises, to what extent are the Western countries ready to continue supplying weapons to Ukraine in the same small doses? The war of attrition in which we are engaged can exhaust NATO if we concern the lack of ammunition in Western countries that has already started. As a result, this war will do more harm for everyone, not only for Ukraine. It will increase our losses. It will have larger impact on economies of all countries. I doubt that the war of attrition will provide Ukraine with a better negotiating position. This only delays the end of the war. So far, China has not taken a clear position of support for Russia, and it is not supplying its lethal weapons there. Although concerns about this are growing, it behaves cautiously, fearing the USA sanctions. But if China starts supplying weapons to Russia, it will enhance Russia's chances of achieving some kind of victory in this war of attrition. And this will entail negative consequences, including the strengthening of Russia and China and weakening of the United States and Europe influence. The war must end now with the full defeat of the Russian army. We must use all the means that Ukraine and its partners have available right now. The cost of defeat, the cost of prolonging the war are much higher than the cost of an overwhelming victory. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yaroslav. And now we will move on to Nikoletta Miriavets. Mileta?
Okay, today I will tell you about the war in Ukraine and about my feelings about it. My presentation will be distributed by Karina Nechitailo. Okay, so let's start. 32 years, Ukraine is independent during these years. Here it's worth noting that the Ukrainian nation has existed for many years. It's confirmed by the annals, the tale of bygone years, which was written at the turn of the 9th and 12th centuries. It tells about the history of the Kiev princes, in particular about the daughter of Yaroslav the Wise, who in 1051 became the Queen of France. Imagine, we have been an independent country for only 32 years, although we have such an ancient history. Why did this happen? There are many reasons for this, and one of them is the Russian Empire. Throughout its history, it has tried to subjugate the Ukrainian people, rob it appropriate all its discoveries and cultural heritage, in the end just want to kill us. Let's recall the M decree and the Valuyev circular issues the Russian Empire. They state that publishing and distribution of books in the Ukrainian language is prohibited. Let's remember the 3 Holodomors. I emphasize there were 3 of them. All contains only about one, which was in the years 1932, 1933, but there were also in 1921 and 1946. My ancestors were starved 3 times. Let's remember the slain Renaissance, when the best Ukrainian artists were executed for being Ukrainian. Let's recall the law of disarmament, when Ukrainians were simply severely robbed of their property, animals, and farming. My great-great-father was robbed of this entire life and house. Everything was taken away. Let's recall the first collectivization, when Ukrainians were forced to work very hard for 20 and 16 hours a day for low salary. They were actually slaves of Soviet Union. All this in the official documents at the state level. All this can be found and seen. And now think, if all those crimes were legal, imagine how many more repression, executions, forced deportations were done unofficially. Imagine how much information is still classified. This is all the past, you say, but we are going to talk about the present. And what do we have today? 30 years of Ukrainian independence, of which the war with the same Russia has been going on for 9 years. Tell me, please, is 23 years enough to recover from centuries of terror and prepare for protracted war? Is this enough to heal all those national wounds? No, not enough. However, the Ukrainians had no other choice, and as you can see, we are holding on. This is probably the phenomenon of Ukrainians. We stand despite war, death, pain, and fear because we have a goal. We want to be free. We want to stop suffering once and for all and live a normal life like all people. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I had a strong dislike for this war. It was difficult to me to realize that now they just want to kill me because I'm Ukrainian. They want to kill me for my choice, my pro-European position. There was a feeling that everything was moving and going to the best, enjoying life, but in Ukraine time stopped and everything froze. On February 24 of last year, there was still some illusory dreams that we will be protected by other countries, largest in terms of area, that the world wouldn't allow the genocide of my people in the 21st century. Yes, the whole world was relied and is helping the weapons and various humanitarian aid, for which we are very grateful to you. However, we already understand that despite your support, we are here alone. We protect ourselves, we ask for help, and we heal ourselves. The realization came that no one, as in the fairy tale, will solve this for us, and we started to believe in ourselves. We began to rely on ourselves. Every Ukrainian is doing possible to speed up our victory. Every Ukrainian feels responsible. And even if it doesn't happen, maybe we will win, because we have a dream. Today we have a dream. We dream of being able to teach in schools and university without ear alarm. We dream of our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will never know what war is. We dream of the possibility of a relaxed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We dream that we will not lose load once every day at the front. We dream of not having to worry about our mother, father, sister, brother every day. We dream that we will not think about death so often. We have a dream today. We dream about freedom. How we are living now? Difficult, but we quickly adapted. We got used to shelling, adapted to power cuts, water supply, and communication. Sometimes it's scary to realize that for us Ukrainians, this kind of life is already common, not peaceful. Sometimes I ask myself how we will live when we win and the war ends. But I think that if we manage to get used to war, then it will be even easier to get used to peaceful life. Education processes in school and universities are now held either remotely or with unplanned interruption due to the air alarms. Sometimes training is conducted in bomb shelters. When mass shelling of the Ukrainian energy system took place, it accordingly complicated educational processes. It was difficult to complete tasks, conduct lesson or lecture. However, the government established unbreakable points where you could charge your smartphone and accordingly already study or work. As of the end of 2022, almost 11,500 points of invincibility were operational in our country, according to the Office of the President of Ukraine. Everyone said that it would be possible to restore the Ukrainian energy industry only by the summer of 2023, because since last October, Russia has struck it more than 215 times as calculated by the publication Ukrainian Pravda. However, thanks to the work of Ukrainian energy workers, we have had stable light for several months. As for January 20 this year, we managed to restore more than 55% of the energy sector facilities destroyed and damaged by the Russians. This information was reported by the head of Naftogaz of Ukraine, Alexei Chernyshov. Also, despite the fact that Russia destroys our infrastructure, roads, houses, and enterprises every day, we have already managed to restore more than 10,600 objects in the Kyiv region, according to the Kyiv Regional Military Administration. And this is only for one area. The restoration of bridges is also taking place gradually. At the beginning of January 2023, out of more than 150 destroyed or damaged bridges, traffic was restored at 78 objects. This information is a report of the Kyiv School of Economics. Despite the positive indicators, we still have a lot of objects to rebuild, restore, and repair. Since the beginning of the full-scale Russian invasion, more than 3,000 educational institutes were damaged in Ukraine. This information is also in the report of the Kyiv School of Economics. In Ukraine, 540 hospitals were partially destroyed and 173 were completely destroyed, according to the Minister of Health of Ukraine. However, you see already updated information about this object on the slide. This number has increased and it gathers every day. Imagine some children have no place to study or no place to go for treatment. In general, according to the Kyiv School of Economics, as of December 2022, the damage to Ukraine's infrastructure due to the war unleashed by Russia reaches $138 billion. This list can be continued for a long time. We can mention completely destroyed cities, villages, and communities. Let's mention the cities of Mariupol, Soledar, or Bakhmut. There is not a single surviving house, apartment, or shop. None. There is no life. There is a whole scorched earth. Imagine a completely destroyed New York or Washington without people, laughter, and the future. Imagine that these cities were died just like our Bakhmut, Soledar, and Mariupol. Imagine how much money will be needed to rebuild them. Imagine how many crimes will need to be solved here, and how many tears the local residents will cry for their dead friends and neighbors. It hurts, just scary and painful. I don't want any of you to feel this way, and I don't want to ask you to imagine it all, but I have no choice. None of Ukrainian has it. We must cry out about our losses, to be given more weapons, to be given more help. We pay such a high price for this help that is difficult to even describe. We pay for it every day with the blood for our loved ones. I shouldn't be saying all this now. I shouldn't have become the grandmother who tells her grandchildren about the world and how she cried out for help. I should have lived the best years of my youth, to study, to travel, to fall in love, and now I'm sitting in front of you and asking for help because there is a war in my country. I wouldn't have, but I have no other choice. None of Ukrainian has it. It's very symbolic that today, when we are speaking the International Day of Remembrance of the Chernobyl disaster, is commemorated all over the world. This disaster was made possible by human error. However, we remember who kept silence about this catastrophe for several days and allow such large-scale consequences. Nearly 8,500,000 people and thousands of kilometers of desert land were exposed to radiation due to the reaction explosion. And what do we have now? Russia threatens nuclear weapons, bombards the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plants, and seizes the isolated land of Chernobyl. Is it dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous. What could be consequences? Take a closer look at the photo of the slide. I thank for the opportunity to speak here now. Thanks to all those who support Ukraine. If someone has done it yet, I hope that this will change after my talk, because Ukrainians are now choosing justice for the whole world, not just for themselves. If the Ukrainians lose, how can you be sure of any justice and democracy after that? Will it not destroy the foundation of our civilization world? We are protecting each of you right now. Russia will not stop in Ukraine. This country has already threatened the Baltic state and Poland. Each of our European neighbors understands this threat and helps Ukraine so that war does not knock on their door. And what are you doing right now so that the Russians don't knock on your door? Thanks for your attention. Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very, very much, Nikoletta. That was a very interesting presentation, and you are correct. Anna, the daughter of Yaroslav the Mudry, was the mother of Henri I, the King of France. So we will move now on to Karina Nekhetaeva. Over to you, Karina.
Okay, today I want to talk about the unbroken generation. Those who were born during the Orange Revolution were teenagers during the occupation of Crimea and Maidan, entered university during the coronavirus and grew up into the war. We, the Ukrainian youth, spent our youth in a time of war. We became conscious under the shells, explosions, and rockets, and we spent our youth in basement during air raids. The war came to us very unexpectedly. At first, everyone refused to believe that Russia would attack Ukraine. We didn't pack our suitcase until the last minute. But on the morning of February 24, our peaceful world stopped being so. People began to evacuate abroad, and those who stayed in Ukraine prepared food supplies. The country was in complete chaos. Lines at bank machine, pharmacies, gas station, lack of products, and many soldiers on the street of one peaceful cities. Panic started in the country. It all seemed like a bad dream, but no, it's now our reality. Volunteering became my lifeline in this difficult time. I see my mission in times of war as helping people who are defending the independence of my country and those who have been forced to leave their house by the enemy. Since I was a little girl, my parents told me to take care of my surroundings, so I couldn't stand aside. People need my support now more than even. When I returned to my hometown, I immediately joined the volunteer hub and tried to help. In the first day of the war, the volunteer center unit young and old people in a joint effort. A 12-year-old girl and her mother distribute cereal. A 50-year-old nurse distributes medicine for the military. 18-year-old girls pack soaps, toothbrush, and toilet paper. And 14-year-old boys with 30-year-old men carried potatoes, onions, and huge box of humanitarian aid. The storage facilities were filled with cereals, biscuits, vegetables, hygiene products, sleeping bags, canned food, and clothes for the whole family. We were carefully packing things for the military. We also wrote them letters and draw pictures to support their spirit. We worked 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. The joint work brought together people from different parts of Ukraine: Kiev, Kharkiv, Odessa, and Lviv. We all left our hometown to work or study, but returned here during the war. We didn't eat, sat in basement during air alerts, heard the sound of rockets aside, but continued to work. In the first months of the war, Ukrainian youth united for a common purpose: defeating the enemy. We always try to talk to and surround all the people who come to our volunteer center, so that they feel safe. Of course, we will never be able to treat their traumas, but every citizen of Ukraine should feel protected in their own country. It's my duty. Every day we work with people whose homes were destroyed by the war, and for some of them, their relatives. My heart is breaking for every child who was forced to hear explosions and hide in basements. It's terrible to listen to the life stories of people who were forced to escape from the war. A family from Donetsk, who have been faced with war for the second time. First, in 2014, they left Donetsk. They moved to live in Kharkiv. As soon as they settled here, the war came again, and in 2022, they were forced to live again, this time in Cherkasy region. They came with their 2 daughters. We gave the girl old clothes, shoes, foods, and hygiene products, and the most they wanted was a picture book with princess. The family from Chernihiv. They didn't have time to leave the city before the Russian arrived. People in Chernihiv were forced into the basement. They were sitting at gunpoint and couldn't resist. Everyone who tried to resist, the Russian military was killed before the eyes of others. Women were raped right in front of their husband. The Russians abused people and children. They didn't care for everyone. My hero is my friend who lives in Irpin. For 2 weeks, she has locked in a basement under her university while the Russians were bombarding the city. A rocket hit her apartment. All her belongings were burned. She had only her phone and passports. The girl went to the evacuate train for 2 hours through the destroyed building and a rocket overhead. My friend passed through the yard where she lived. There she saw the bodies of her neighbors who had not managed to get to the basement and were left lying there forever in their suitcase. This girl walked through Irpin looking death in the eyes. She is my hero. Our defense is our boys and men who are desperate walking under the bullets because they know that Ukraine must defend its border. Thousands of young men, the best sons of Ukraine, now dying because of Russians' blood war. My classmate Yevhen is also at war right now. She is 19 years old. We have known each other since kindergarten. Then we went to school together for 11 years, and we are still good friends. Yevhen is a soldier. In the first day of the war, we went to Kharkiv. Later, she served in Mykhailo. There, he lived in a military barracks where Russians fired missiles. Then he went out at night to demolish the collapsed building and rescue people. It saved his life that day. During the tragedy in Mykhailo, 3 of his friends were killed, and she couldn't have died. Now Yevhen is serving near Bakhmut in the Donetsk region. The most intense military operations were taking place in this region. They are there to keep us from sleeping in peace. My heart with him there. He is my hero. All these stories show us once again that Ukrainians cannot be fighting by shelling or explosions. Ukrainians' children were not afraid of the war. They all had to grow up very quickly. They were forced to exchange their phone for a box of humanitarian aid, and instead of walking in the park with friends, they sat in the basement hiding from rockets. During the 427 days of war, our lives changed radically. You are used to living in fear. We got used to live with the idea that everyone could be the last. During the war, the whole world united around our country because it saw how Ukrainians cooperate with each other. Now the whole world is with Ukraine. On the other hand, Russia has fallen in the eyes of the international community, and for the years to come, all its citizens will become uninvited guests in any other country. This point of the map has become associated with cruel and bloody enemy. Having been failed in the front line, Russia is trying to cause a humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. To stop the enemy, the defense forces need additional support from partners. Ukrainians are crying out for military equipment, ammunition, and air defense system to stop bloodshed. The world should hear the Ukrainians' request, because now Ukraine is fighting not only for its territory, but also for peace and freedom around the world. We all have to stop terrorist country together. What will Ukraine be like after the war? My Ukrainian after the victory is a blue sky, birds singing, and children's happiness. Our country will have suffered great marital losses after the war, but it will have got something much valuable, the unit of the Ukrainian nation. The enemy has taken away someone's peace, someone's home, and someone's life, and we will never forget them. Despite the fact that many towns and villages have been destroyed by the occupiers, people will return to their hometowns. Every house, school, and kindergarten will be rebuilt over time. We see this in Bucha, Irpin, and Hostomel. After the occupation, numerous murders, and destruction, people still return to their hometowns. Massive reconstruction has begun, and everyone is working for the future of Ukraine. Ukrainians are people who have been trying to protect their independence for all years of their existence. Each of us must help our Ukraine now, so that in years to come our children will live in a free country. From the west to the east, we are one nation, free, hardworking, and unbroken. We will fight to the end. We will defeat the enemy and prove to the whole world that the Ukrainian people are proud to be respected. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Karina. That was a very, very impressive presentation. Questions. I would like to, there's a bunch of questions that we have received, and I will start with the questions to Yaroslav. Actually, most of you, all of you can answer the same question because it's a very good question. Do you think that the war in Ukraine is being prolonged by the Western countries in order to make Ukraine surrender territories? We will start with Yaroslav, move on to Nika, and then to Karina.
Thank you for the question. It is really a good question. Yes, I think that the war is being prolonged by our partners. We do not receive the enough aid, military aid, and it is also decreasing every month. We could have received the Poland air jets, and 1 year ago, but the USA blocked that and unblocked this aid from Poland only a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago. So here comes the question: why did USA prolong all this year the plans?
All right. Okay, what about Nika? What is your perspective on this?
I hope this war will end quickly with the help of our friends. We needed this help. We need her support, and I think this war will be end in the near future because their support now.
All right. And Karina?
Please repeat the question I didn't hear.
To what extent do you think that the rest of the world is delaying helping Ukraine because of the territories?
At first, Ukraine need ammunition and
Is there a problem? All right, the next question is, to what extent do you see the future of Ukraine going forward, and how long do you think it's going to take before there is some kind of a resolution? And finally, the question, do you think that China will be helping Russia with the weapons? So, Yaroslav, we'll start with you again.
So at first, with how do I see the future of Ukraine? The future of Ukraine will be definitely a thriving future. Of our people will be freed, and we will definitely defeat Russia in this war, put an end to all these tortures and crimes. And you asked about the Chinese helping Russians with the ammunition and weapon. I think the Chinese have taken the side of Russia in this war from the very first day when it started, and in some way they are already helping them with the equipment, with the weapon, but they do it like stealthily, and they do not send some lethal weaponry. That's the answer.
All right, Nika?
I hope that China will not help Russia in this war because it will show it in a bad light. I hope that our friends will be able to help us even more, and hope that Ukraine will win and everything will be fine for us. I believe that we have a bright future ahead of us.
All right, and Karina?
China has an ambiguous position, so it's important to predict their actions. In my opinion, China has more confrontation with America and therefore can help Russia, but I believe this will not happen.
Okay, next question is, what makes you not give up and continue to work under the circumstances that you are living now? What gives you the courage and the energy to do what you're doing? Start with Yaroslav again.
So I'm just focusing on my chores, on the things that I am doing, and where I have been used to all that is happening right now. I've got used to this. And of course, our armed forces are keeping us brave and confident in the future, in the bright future.
Moving on to Nika.
So today I will do everything possible that can, I hope, in the near future gives us a bright victory. Yes, for example, in my hometown, I was one of the organizers of the center to help people. I'm also sharing a speech that's true about this war in my social network. So I think all this will speed up our victory.
All right, next question is, how has the war affected you and your family? And what has changed in your life that cannot be returned. Yaroslav?
So the war have changed all of us. We have become politically aware. We are interested by the politics, and we are keeping our we are following everything that is happening in the world now. And of course, we're all getting ready to the worst. Maybe we should move from the town. Maybe we should. Maybe our males will be mobilized and go to the war. And we all must be prepared for this.
Okay. Nika?
The life of each of us has definitely changed. We think more often about death. We are afraid to read the news. At the same time, together with that, we became stronger. We believe in our strength and do everything possible to defeat Russia as soon as possible.
And excuse me, Karina.
After war, I became more resist and learned to live in the here and now. Morally, it's very difficult to live through this terrible day, but the world made us all stronger. Now I'm inspired by people, the military, other volunteer, and people living in the occupied territories. They are strong because they have been working hard all this time, so I have to be strong too.
Right. The next question is, to what extent do you see your future? Are you planning to remain in Ukraine, or are you planning to travel and see the world? What are you going to be doing after the war is finished? Yaroslav?
If the war is finished, maybe I will be traveling throughout the lands, the countries that I have learned more about them. These are our countries that are our partners at the same time. I learned more during these events about them, about their history, and I've become more interested in them. It may be also the territory of Russia. It depends on what is going to be on the territory after this war. What country? Maybe it will be Ukraine.
Nika?
I plan to stay in Ukraine for now. However, in the future, I would associate my profession with travel. I like to study other cultures, and it impressed me. But while I'm in Ukraine, this is my home. After the war, I hope our country will become even more comfortable for life.
Okay, and Karina?
After the war, I will thank everyone who contributed to the victory. I will thank the military and remember all those who died. And of course, I will go to the Ukrainian Crimea. I don't want to go abroad.
To what extent do all of you feel that you have been betrayed by your former government in what has happened to Ukraine right now? Yaroslav?
Have been betrayed not only by our former government, but also by the people, we can say, because there is no logic in telling that the government is the only thing that is to blame. Why not everyone from our really good nation hasn't become the ruler of this nation and didn't build the society, the strong country that it must have been by the 2014 and of course by the 2022. I blame all the governments that was in Ukraine for disarming it and making it vulnerable to Russia.
That's a very, very good point. Because basically, if Moroz did not insist, that was a person in your parliament, that they should not give, actually, American government offered 450 million for the remnants of the nuclear arms that you had. And your representative, Moroz, said that they would never give it, they would keep it. And within a couple of months, they gave it all to Russia. So that was, at that time, was a very, very wrong decision to make, because it made Ukraine extremely vulnerable. Before, it was basically only vulnerable by bringing in and letting a lot of Russians lead in your positions and take over many of your government. Very important positions were taken over by the Russian citizens. But then giving up all your nuclear ability was horrendous. That only encouraged more corruption and more what happened to Ukraine.
As I previously said, they've become more politically aware and we have been getting ready for the worst that is to come.
All right, moving on to Nika.
I think Ukraine has changed for the better, and we are all an example of that. We rely on our government. We see that each of us cares. Everyone helps each other. We are a union, and I hope this will be our advantage in this war.
Okay, and Karina.
In my opinion, now the government did a good job during the war. The armed forces and commanders are doing everything for Ukraine to win, and the world will help to Ukraine understand the value of independence. And all of us, I personally start to. After the war, I personally start spending more time with my family, appreciating every time of my life, and because a day without alarms is already happiness.
Okay, this is an interesting question. In your opinion, why do you think Russia invaded Ukraine at this time? Yaroslav?
It's so that there will be no resistance, not only from Ukraine, but also from the West, from the Western countries. Then they didn't really mind. But our people, our nation, showed them how it is strong and kept them at bay. They didn't realize what they are going to meet here on our territory and how strongly we will face them.
All right, Nika?
Because, in my opinion, before the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia was spreading disinformation about Ukraine. She attributed her incitements to herself. As a result, we see that she continues to lie and doesn't stop in Ukraine because she
Okay, and Karina?
In my opinion, Russia always want to rule us, Ukrainians. They want our lands. They want to rule our hardworking people. Russia want to rule the world. So, in my opinion, if they take over Ukraine, they will go further.
Okay, and here's another question. In the future, do you think that you will be able to resolve all the issues of today's war, particularly those with Russia? Yaroslav?
Not really. It will take generations to heal up all the wounds that Russia has done to our people, to our country and economy. It will require much diplomatic work towards rebuilding our Ukraine, our destroyed cities, towns, and villages. And it is unknown how this war will end, on what terms.
Okay, thank you, Yaroslav. I never know when you finish talking. So
I'm sorry.
I have to wait until I decide, oh, he's not going to talk anymore. Okay, Nika.
Okay, I think we will be able to restore all the damaged infrastructure with the help of our friends. I hope so. However, we wouldn't bring back the lives of their people who dies in this war. And I hope that Russia will be
And Karina.
After the war, Ukrainians will face many problems. It's true. It will take many years to fix and rebuild them. In my opinion, it will take about 10 years. And for this, we need the world's help.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is an interesting question. How are you maintaining your moral and mental health during this time? Yaroslav?
Well, I'm watching some positive videos and reading some positive articles or media. Media helps quite well in maintaining our good mood. And we need good mood to keep our job, keep Ukraine achieving its victory.
Okay, Nika?
mental health is undoubtedly a very important thing. So I try to restore my resource and keep my emotional balance by doing my favorite things, hobbies that bring me pleasure, and of course, communication with people who shares my interests and wives, including the future of Ukraine, as is allows me to distract myself from negativity.
Okay, Karina.
I'm very emotional, and in the first months of the war, I cried a lot. But my younger sister helped me to stay strong. I know that war cannot destroy her childhood, and children should not live in constant depressions. The main things for me is to rest, spend time with my family, and find time for hobbies.
Very good. I'm very glad to hear that. We're trying to do things in order to help a lot of the young women in Ukraine, especially those that really suffered things that they shouldn't have suffered. Next question is, how does the war affect the choices of your future generation in their professions? Yaroslav?
I suppose it has made our future generations and our generation to be more pro-European, to choose more pro-European way and position, to get closer to the West, where there is freedom and thriving.
Diving?
No, thriving, like blossom.
Okay, Nika?
I think that our youth are already more aware. She actively helps and volunteer and fights for our Jane victory.
And Karina?
I think more children in the future will choose profession that are aimed at helping other people, and our future generation will be more conscious and will have more hatred for Russians.
Thank you. And this will be the last question. There's many, many more, but I'll try to pick the questions that would be interesting to the public that is listening. Can you tell us about your volunteering experience? When did you get the idea to start helping, and how have you been doing with that? Does this give you a lot of satisfaction? And we'll start once more with Yaroslav.
My volunteering experiences is closely connected with my translation experience. I'm translating the articles for the volunteers. I'm translating some of their advertisements and propositions and some instructions for their products. And that's it. And I've come to this since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, when all of our people wanted to contribute to the victory, wanted to make something. I told you that 1 year ago when you first invited me, that I tried to donate my blood to the army, and they didn't need it. my group wasn't needed. I have positive group. That's it.
Well, it was lovely that you tried to donate it. I think that's definitely a very, very good thing to do in times of stress and times of war and time of situation that you're in. Nika?
I started volunteering right from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and I'm inspired by the fact that I can be useful. First of all, I'm giving a speech now, and I'm also actively involved in volunteering. For example, in my hometown, I was one of the organizers of a center to help people. I'm also sharing spread the truth about this war in my social network. So I think all this will spread up our victory.
Thank you. And Karina?
My friend offered me to join the volunteer center. It was the second day of war. We went here and start working right away. At first, we sort vegetables, and then we work in the hygiene department. There we had products for children and adults. Of course, it's very hard to work as a volunteer center. We had to carry heavy boxes. There were a lot of people, and there was no time for the lunch break. I also helped Ukraine in the information field. I started my career as a journalist during the war. At first, I worked on the radio. There we quickly informed people about all the news of war. Later, I started working in the online publication where I also wrote news. I often seek information from experts so that people understand what is happening and what to expect. So I consider my mission now to wage war in the informational field.
Well, that is excellent. I did want to say to all of you that it is extremely important that you put as much information on the social media that you can about what is going on, because people like to know. And unfortunately, there is a lot of propaganda that is going around that is not doing Ukraine any service. So it's up to you to get on the social media and say whatever it is that you're experiencing, whatever is going on, paste the pictures. You have wonderful, wonderful graphics that you could put on Facebook or wherever it is, on Twitter or on any media that you can. And I think that that is very, very important. And finally, is there anything else that you would like to say to this audience from you to them? And we'll start with Yaroslav.
Be brave like Ukraine.
Thank you. Nika?
Help more, maybe.
Okay, and Karina?
I pleased everyone work for the victory. Slava Ukraini!
Well, that's a very, very good statement to end on. I wish you a very, very good week, and I wish you the best of luck in your future. Thank you very much for participating. This has been a very, very interesting and informative webinar, thanks to your efforts. Goodbye.